Good evening and welcome to India Business Insights. For 20 years, the story of Indian pharmaceuticals was predictable. It was a story of scale, speed and cost. We became the pharmacy of the world by supplying 20% of the global generic drug volume. We mastered the art of reverse engineering. But as we close out 2025, that volume-driven model is no longer a guarantee of survival. In fact, the data from the last 2 quarters suggests the industry has reached a tipping point, a binary outcome. By 2030, Indian pharma will either evolve into a high-value innovation powerhouse or it will remain trapped in a race to the bottom in generic commoditization. Tonight, we are presenting our comprehensive State of the Industry report. The full report is a comprehensive 140-page report. A 40-slide deck is available on request free of charge. The address is at the end of the video. We have analyzed the Q1 and Q2 FY26 results, the export data and the pipeline fillings. The verdict: the industry is stratifying. The gap between the leaders and the laggards is widening. We are tracking a pivot from a $50 billion domestic market today to a projected $120 to $130 billion ecosystem by 2030. But how we get there involves navigating geopolitical minefields, patent cliffs, and a radical shift in technology. Let's dive into the numbers. First, let's look at the financial health. FY25 was a watershed year. The domestic market crossed $50 billion and exports exceeded $25 billion. But the rising tide is not lifting all boats equally. We are seeing a distinct stratification in performance. At the top of the pyramid, large cap companies, players like Sun Pharma, Cipla, and Dr. Reddy's are reporting robust revenue growth of 8 to 10%. But the key metric here is EBITDA margin. Margins between 22% and 26%, and in certain quarters even in excess of 30%. Why? Because they are no longer just selling simple pills. They are selling complex specialty medicines. Take Sun Pharma as the prime example. In FY25, they clocked revenues of over 52,000 crore rupees. Moving into the first half of FY26, those margins expanded to over 31%. This is not accidental. It's driven by their specialty portfolio. Drugs like Ilumya for psoriasis and their new launch Leqselvi. For the first time, Sun's US innovative revenue has surpassed its generic revenue. That is a pivot in action. However, the fastest growth is actually found in the mid-cap tier. Companies like Mankind Pharma and Torrent. They are outpacing the giants with 12 to 15% revenue growth. Their strength lies in the domestic market, especially in chronic therapies like cardiac and diabetes care, which are growing at 12 to 14% annually. Mankind Pharma, for instance, saw H1 FY26 revenue jump nearly 23% year over year. But the bottom of the pyramid is under stress. SMEs are seeing growth lag at 6% to 8%, with margins compressed to 14 to 18%. They lack the capital to pivot to high-value drugs and are bearing the brunt of regulatory upgrades and raw material inflation. The industry is effectively K-shaped right now. Part 2. Now, let's look at the global map. The United States remains our largest customer, accounting for 35% of exports. But the US market has become a fortress of diminishing returns. We are seeing structural price erosion of 6 to 8% annually in the US generics market. If that wasn't enough, the tariffs introduced in August 2025 have compressed margin by another 150 to 300 basis points. The message from the US is clear. Simple generics are a commodity with shrinking profits. In contrast, Europe has emerged as a profit stabilizer. Dr. Reddy's, for example, saw its European revenue surge by 142% in FY25, driven by its acquisition of NRT portfolio and a streamlined biosimilars pathway. The European Medicines Agency, or EMA, has reduced approval time for biosimilars by 30 to 40%. Making Europe a faster route to cash flow than the US. But getting products to those markets is a logistical nightmare. The Red Sea crisis continues to disrupt supply chains. Freight costs have jumped from $1,800 to $4,500 per container. Companies like DV's Labs have responded by rerouting 87% of their shipments via the Cape of Good Hope and using blockchain tracking to maintain 99% on-time delivery, despite the 14-day delay. This is what we call operational resilience. If the volume is past, what is the future? The answer lies in two words: biosimilars and complex generics. The industry is currently chasing a $35 billion opportunity, a patent cliff of blockbuster drugs losing exclusively between now and 2030. This has triggered a massive capital reallocation. In FY25, over 65% of new R&D funding was directed toward biologics and novel delivery systems, up from just 40% 3 years ago. Let's look at the specific bets being made. First, oncology. This is the domain therapy area. Biocon has already filed its biosimilar for bevacizumab in Europe. Dr. Reddy's is currently in phase 3 trials for a daratumumab biosimilar, eyeing a 2026 launch. Second, the GLP-1 rush. This is the hottest segment in pharma, driven by diabetes and weight loss drugs like semaglutide. Dr. Reddy's is aggressively preparing filings for Canada and 87 other markets, targeting a commercial launch as early as January 2026. Mankind Pharma is even using AI to screen millions of compounds for novel GPR119 agonists. And third, respiratory. This is Cipla's fortress. They have filed for the generic version of Symbicort, targeting a $1.2 billion market opportunity. Lupin is also expecting approval for its asthma inhaler in Q1 FY26. However, innovation at the front end means nothing if you can't manufacture the raw materials at the back end. And this brings us to the industry's Achilles heel, the China factor. Despite years of talking about self-reliance, India still relies on China for 50% of its key starting materials, or KSMs. For critical antibiotics like penicillin G, that dependency is dangerously high, near 90%. If China shuts the tap, our antibiotic production halts. The government's production-linked incentive, or PLI scheme, was designed to fix this, but progress has been mixed. Of the 41 critical APIs targeted, only 28 have actually started production as of FY25. Fermentation-based technologies, which are crucial for antibiotics, are facing delays. But the private sector isn't waiting for government's target. Leading API players are backward, integrating aggressively. DV's Labs has invested nearly 1,500 crore in its Kakinada facility. They are using continuous flow chemistry, a greener, more efficient technology to achieve a 40% cost advantage. This allows them to compete with Chinese pricing without subsidies. Aurobindo Pharma is executing backward integration for over 30 molecules, improving their gross margins by 220 basis points. The goal is to reduce import dependency by 30%. We are currently at about 18%. So there are still a long way to go. While we secure our own supply chains, we are simultaneously becoming the factory for the world's innovators. The CDMO sector is booming as global pharma giants execute their China Plus One strategies. India is the primary beneficiary. We currently hold about 12% of the global CDMO market, but we are growing faster than China, 14% annually versus their 9%. Why? Because of the sweet spot between cost and compliance. India offers a 35 to 40% cost advantage over Western manufacturers, but unlike China, we have a deepening trust relationship with Western regulators. We are seeing a shift in what is being manufactured here. It's no longer just basic small molecules. In FY25, CDMOs are investing heavily in capacity. We are tracking over $1.2 billion in new investments, specifically for sterile fill finish capacity. This is the infrastructure that will power the next decade of growth. We cannot paint a rosy picture without addressing the risks. The headwinds heading into 2026 are stiff. The biggest threat is regulatory scrutiny. The USFDA has intensified their inspections. The rate of Official Action Indicated or OAI outcomes, the worst kind of inspection result, has climbed to 25% in 2025. A single warning letter can cost a company $5 to $10 million in remediation and months of lost sales. There is also a talent war. As companies pivot to complex biologics, they are finding a shortage of skilled labor. There is a 40% vacancy rate for biostatisticians. Companies are poaching talent. Lupin, for example, reportedly recruited a lead EU GMP auditor at a 180% salary premium. The hardware is being built, but the software, the human capital, is struggling to keep up. So, where does this all lead? What is the destination? The industry roadmap targets a $150 billion economy by 2030. But the composition of that revenue will look very different from today. First, the domestic market is projected to grow to $60 billion, driven not by acute infections, but by chronic therapies for diabetes and heart disease. Second, exports will hit $45 billion, but the driver will shift from oral solids to biosimilars and complex injectables. Third, the CDMO sector will double to over $22 billion, solidifying India's position as the manufacturing engine of the world. And finally, a new sector, digital health, projected to contribute $15 billion as drugs are increasingly bundled with apps and diagnostics. The era of the copycat is effectively over. The Great Stratification means that only those who invest in value, in innovation, in green chemistry, and in digital integration will survive the next 5 years. Sun Pharma's $2 billion bet on biologics, Divi's blockchain logistics, and mankind's AI discovery engines are not just experiments. They are new baseline for competitiveness. For India Business Insights, I am Devleena. We will continue to track this $150 billion pivot as FY26 unfolds. Thank you for watching.